Hi everybody. It's Farmer Dan at Heartstone Farm. We're just about to get this evening webinar started. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll wait just a minute or two while some other folks come in the door. Looks like we got about 20 people so far. The number's going up and up. I don't know if everybody can see that, but thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your Tuesday evening to join us. And we'll give it just a minute or so. We're going to talk tonight about Heartstone Farm and what we're doing and why we're doing it, and how you can be a part of that as an owner, as an investor, and what the return would be for you and what that means. We're going to talk a lot about our mission and what we're trying to do. And I'm going to give you an incentive. This is going to be about an hour. I'm going to go through kind of what we're doing tonight, but I'm going to give you an incentive for sticking around. And the incentive is at the very end, Denise, who's right here with me, you can't see her yet, you'll see her a little bit later, promises that she's going to share, I don't know if it's fair to say, her number one tip for cooking a great steak. Is that what you're going to do?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I'll do.
So you're going to have to be with us for the whole hour. You're going to have to put up with me, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel or something like that, a tip. So, well, I think we'll get started here. No reason to waste any time. I hope you guys have had a great Tuesday. I hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend. It feels a little fall-like here, which is like a really nice, cool temperature, great sleeping weather. And then if it's true for you, there's always that kind of dread of winter is coming. And but I guess live in the moment, enjoy the fall. That's the way to do it. Let me start with just an overview, and then we'll show you my screen for a little bit, and I'll go through kind of an agenda that we have, and hopefully we'll make this interactive. If you have questions, we got, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 questions that came in with the registration. So we got lots of questions, but if you have a question tonight, Tara wants a link. Can you send her a link? Or I don't have a link. We'll get her a link. Anyways, if you have a question tonight, there's a Q&A button, right?
Yes.
And the Q&A button, fill out your question in there. We'll get it. We'll answer it. We'll do the best we can to answer it. Well, let's get started. Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen here and show you a little bit of just a kind of pretty quick presentation that we'll be doing here. So let's do that. Yeah. So I can never get tired of looking at our beautiful cattle out on the pastures here, and they're the sweetest animals that you ever met. There's just something about cows, and it's why I started doing this 10 years ago. So we'll come back to them, but I just love to start with this kind of picture of our sweet animals. This is the agenda for tonight, and want to answer your questions, want to get you excited about being a part of Heartstone Farm, which you obviously already kind of are interested by showing up tonight. But we're going to talk just a little bit about our mission and what we're doing and the business. It's become a business, a growing business. We're going to kind of walk you through a couple little things about what is crowdfunding equity. It's a term I frankly didn't know about a few months ago before I started doing this. I'm going to move my computer so I can see this other screen. We're going to talk about how to invest and become an owner. And then we're going to definitely go over the bonus early bird perks that you receive for investing by tomorrow at noon. And the reason it's tomorrow at noon is it's 2 weeks after we launched our crowdfunding equity campaign. And so we had to kind of set a deadline, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll make sure we answer all of your questions. So everything going okay on your end, Denise? Things seem okay?
Yes.
Good. I want to talk about the way farming used to be done, the way meat used to be produced. And I put up here bacon circa 1970 because that's about when things started to change. It's about when instead of getting bacon from a farmer who kind of brought it into the local market, huge, gigantic companies started taking over meat production in the United States. And things changed. And the things that changed are really demonstrated in this photograph, which I labeled Bacon circa 2024. We've come a long ways and it isn't progress. The animals, the livestock are in inhumane conditions that they're raised in. They receive systematically and just kind of as a matter of course, things like growth hormones and antibiotics. And it's an efficient system. It's controlled by four gigantic companies that control 85% of meat processing in the United States. And what I came to this with, and the reason I kind of decided to buy a farm when I was 60, about 10 years ago, and start farming was I thought this is just wrong. And it's not what I want to put inside me. It's not the food I want to eat. It's not food anybody should eat. Something's gone wrong here. And so that's what Heartstone Farm started out doing, and it's what we're still doing. And we're not alone. Consumers increasingly, and it's really showing up in the growth and the number of our customers are saying, I want to know what's in my food. And that seems a pretty reasonable thing to ask. Something so fundamental, so existential as the food I eat. Denise and I were just talking before this. What do you call it? Are you on keto or carnivore?
Carnivore.
She's on carnivore. I'm on keto. And I've been on keto for 3 weeks, to be honest with you. But we were talking about how much better we're feeling. Isn't it amazing how the food you eat tells you something just by how you're feeling? I've had more energy. I've been clearer less brain fog. It's like, wow. And it's just, and why I'm mentioning that here is that I think we have to think about the food we eat, where it came from, and trusting what shows up at the grocery store. It's just not something you should do. And meanwhile, especially around here, but I think all across the country, farmers are getting a smaller and smaller percentage of the food dollar. They're struggling. Around here up in the Northeast, development, especially not so much in Maine, but in other places, development is buying up farmland. Solar, things are showing up here. And farmers work hard and struggle. And when they're done, when they're my age or a little bit older and it's time to give up, there's not much to show for it. So we believe that there are farmers up here in the Northeast raising great livestock, raising great meat. There are consumers looking for better meat. And our job as Heartstone Farm is to connect the two. We bought 5 cows in the spring of 2015. And we thought, well, now we're in the cattle business. Well, not exactly, right? We just I didn't have a clue really, but I learned a lot. In the last 10 years, I have been on a PhD program learning about cattle and feed and meat and grass. And I was looking at this photograph today before I was putting in here, and I admired 2 things. One, that fence got really beat up over the last 10 years. It looks so nice there. And that lovely animal, the third from the left with the white on her face is Betsy, who is still here and having babies. And she's been our, what do they call them? Like, the cow that's the leader of the pack. But she was one of our first 5 cows, and she's still here. What's that? She's the matriarch of our farm, of our system. And she knows the ropes, that's for sure. Um, you know, when we first started, I would deliver meat, and these are just some of the customers that I would actually drive my truck, my pickup truck to, and bring them their meat. And you can see by the expressions of their faces, it really kept me going. I loved doing that. And these were in the very early days of bringing stuff to people. One of the things they would say to me is, we really love your meat, but where can we get chicken or pork or turkey that's raised the same way? And we started approaching people, our neighbors at first and others, and saying, hey, we really like the way you raise your chicken, turkey, pork. Maybe we could provide a way of selling it for you. That's growing. In 10 years, we now work with over 50 farms throughout the Northeast that are raising meat the way we would by our protocols, raised humanely without antibiotics, without growth hormones, and raised the way that nature intended. And we've served in that time. I've gone a little fast forward here. Over 17,000 customers. We now ship to 15 states, and we're going to go nationwide in the next 24 months. Here's the principles. Small family farms in the Northeast, no antibiotics or growth hormones, livestock that's raised in humane conditions, that's processed at small family processors with no middlemen, direct from the farm to the consumer. And I count many of you as our customers, and that's kept us going. And that's why we've brought what we hope is kind of Meat 2024, raised the way nature intended, out on our grass, out on the grass of lots of farms in the Northeast. I'm going to go through some business stuff pretty quickly here. Starting in the fall of 2023, this is after the pandemic, we realized this growing trend. Customers were coming to us, and we thought, we have not just a business opportunity here, but something that we could do that was really important, and that is grow our business, connect more farmers and consumers. And what you can see here is starting last fall, our sales started to really grow. The dark red bars are the current year. So for instance, in August, we just did $500,000 in revenue in the month that closed 2 days ago. And what does that say? Last year, I think it was under 200,000. I have to peek around to see the slide. So we've been growing, and the way we've been growing is we're getting new customers. The green bars, as you see at the top, are new customers in that month. So each month in August, as I said, I think we got about 750 new customers. That's, nearly 25 or something per day. And the red bars represent returning customers. So as we've gained new customers, they come a month or two later, they place a second order, a third order, they become returning customers. And that has driven our business. And that's what we want to continue to do. That's how we're going to grow this business, is serving more customers, gaining more customers. I looked it up today. We have 9,000. I really wanted it to, I'm sorry, we have 8,955. I wanted it to be 9,000. I thought that'd be a really cool thing today. And this review came in at, I'm just going to read it. Let me move my computer. It came in at 4:30 today. It's just a random, but it's kind of, it's symbolic of these 8,955. Wow, I didn't remember that meat tasted so good, says Christina Kuhn. When I was growing up, this is what it tasted like. I'm so glad I found Farmer Dan. No hormones, additives, or grains. One taste, and you won't go back to the grocery store. And like I said, I read every single review that come into my mailbox. That's the last review we got tonight. And it's not like I went and found a really good one. That's what people say to us. It keeps us going, and it motivates us to continue to serve the market. I just hit the wrong thing there. Right now, like I said, we serve 15 states in the Northeast. Shortly, I think in the next 30 to 60 days, right, Denise, will be announcing that we're going to grow that map. And we're going to continue to do that and continue to add states. We're not going nationwide right away, but For instance, we're going to be adding Chicago and Indiana and Kentucky and I think Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina. I think I may have just made the announcement, but um, you know, we see ourselves being able to grow both in terms of more customers from our Northeast, but also expanding that. Every single day we get people from those states saying, you don't ship to North Carolina. And so we know the demand is out there. What I want to say is it's not just Farmer Dan. What I'm proud of is that I got this amazing team of people that are all focused on the same thing with deep experience. Denise, who's been doing this job with me for 4 years, who cares about farmers. Tara, who helped and was part of it and is my partner since the day we first saw this farm. Sean, who came to us from a lot of logistics experience, including places like Cisco. Christy, who used to work for Pineland and now helps us work with other farmers and sourcing. Paul, who's our marketing guy, who's got 20 years of experience, and Jed, who's our financial guy, CFO, who's got an MBA and has worked with farms for a long time. I counted it all up. Between us, we've got 120 years of experience, and we're devoting it to this business and serving more customers and serving more farmers and, better meat. Now let's talk about how's our time? What time is it? Oh, we're doing good, right? We'll talk a little about crowdfunding equity. And we're getting a lot of good questions too.
Mhm.
Lots of good questions.
15.
What's that?
6.
6 questions plus that's 15.
Yep.
So we got a lot of good questions. Again, 2 things, just I'll pause here. If you have a question at any point, type it up in the Q&A little button down there. And if you missed this at the very beginning, one reason, probably the only reason to stay the whole way, is that Denise is going to share her #1 tip. It's a secret, nobody knows it, for cooking the very best steak you've ever had. So that's at the very end. That's like the kicker or something like that. We launched 13 days ago our crowdfunding equity campaign. We knew to grow and to serve more customers and serve more farmers, we needed to raise an investment. We had to build out inventory, spend money on marketing. We want to add some people to our team. And if you're going to grow like the chart that I just showed you, you're going to have to raise investment. And I certainly thought about, I've got a lot of experience with venture capital, but that didn't feel like the right way to go. And it really felt to me like we should do this as kind of in the same way we grow our cattle and stuff on pasture, should be grassroots. And so we thought, we've got a lot of customers who believe in us and care about what we're doing. Let's ask them if they'll support us, and we'll give them part ownership in our business. And hopefully we'll grow and their ownership will grow in value. So that was the idea. We didn't know how it would launch, but I got to tell you, it launched. It was just amazing. So in 12 days, we have 200, and I haven't even checked it. There were a lot coming in tonight and tomorrow because it's of that deadline for the perks. So over 200 of our customers have become owners of Heartstone Farm. And as of this evening, we've raised $300,000. And that's, I thought we would do well. I was really nervous at the beginning because, who knows? But I'm really pleased, and I'm humbled. I'm appreciative. What this campaign has done for us, and it's done for me personally, is to make it feel like it's not just us, not just those 6 or 7 people that you saw in the previous slide making this business go. It's 200 of our customers, not just buying from us, but saying, we back you. We believe in this. It's important. And that has just got me so charged. And I think all of us, and we also know we got to do well by you. And so we're motivated. We were motivated before. It was a good we're building a good business here, but we know that when you invest with us, you're putting your faith in us, and we appreciate that, and we're gonna know that every single day. I want to define for a second what's it called? Regulation crowdfunding. So prior to 2016, small businesses like ours legally could not go out and approach anybody to invest in them who wasn't worth at least $1 million. There was a government regulation, SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. In 2016, law was passed that said, let's create this kind of niche where investors don't have to be millionaires. There can be some restrictions on how it works, and it's called regulation crowdfunding. And it made it so that our customers, folks like you, could become a part of Heartstone Farm and legally invest in it. Now, there were a couple of things about it. One is, in order to do this, you have to use it's called a platform or a company that handles these things. And we chose Start Engine as our platform. Start Engine is essentially one of the very few companies that the SEC has authorized to be a platform for this kind of fundraising. And what we're doing is we're selling common stock, shares of ownership in Heartstone Farm. And we'll talk a little bit about what becomes your investment. What do you do with it? One restriction is there are a few restrictions about who you can sell it to in the first year. And these are SEC regulations. The other thing I want to mention maybe at this point is if you've gone to Start Engine, I've heard this from a couple of people. I heard it from somebody about a half hour before we started, a friend of mine, and she said, wow, they're asking me for a lot of information. It's like opening a brokerage account, and the SEC requires that they get that information from you. One of the things they're going to ask you, and it's nobody's business, but it does have to be recorded, is I think, how much money do you earn? That's not to pry into your business. That's because the SEC has a regulation about how much you can invest as it relates to how much you earn. So while I don't think anybody ought to pry, and it's nobody's business, there are certain things that we just, are part of this deal. If you live in Maine, I'm just going to touch on this and invite you to look into it. Maine has a tax credit called the Maine Seed Capital Tax Credit Program, and you can get 40% of what you invest in Heartstone Farm back as a tax credit. I think it's spread over 4 years. And we have been qualified. We have received a letter approving us as an investment for the Maine FAME tax credit program. Again, it only applies if you're a Maine taxpayer, but since some of our people on our call tonight are, I just wanted to mention it. There's more details on the Start Engine page. I think this is almost the end. If you missed the news the other night, we're gonna just well, this was almost the lead, but we'll play it for you. Whoops, we'll play it with volume if we can.
So without all the work.
A Maine company is transforming the way families buy their meat and the way Maine farmers sell it. Alyssa Thurlow takes us to Dover Foxcroft to show us how they're raising meat you can trust.
Becoming a farmer was always a lifelong dream of Dan Kaplan's. In 2013, he bought 5 cows and Heartstone Farm was born. At the age of 60, Dan began his journey of raising beef cattle on his farm in Charleston. Business has picked up following the pandemic as many families have started to change their habits around buying meat.
But what's more important than the food you eat and knowing where it came from? 4 meat processors control 85% of meat processing in the United States. And it's not coming from here. It's coming from feedlots in the Midwest. Conditions are inhumane.
Through a partnership with 50 small farms across the Northeast, Heartstone Farm is delivering all-natural beef, chicken, turkey, and other meat products directly to families.
We're giving them the ability to kind of market their products and make a living at what they love.
Heartstone Farm has expanded in recent years. They have customers from Maine to Virginia and ship out 2,500 orders each month from their distribution facility right here in Dover Foxcroft.
These will go right out to a customer.
Miles Whitney is a third-generation farmer who raises pigs, which he sells to Dan. This saves him time and money.
If I didn't sell my pigs to Dan, I would have to, all my spare time would be at farmers markets and whatnot.
He's also one of the company's 10 employees, helping grow the farm's sales.
People want to go smaller. They want their money to stay in their region a lot of times, and they want to support small farmers. And this is a great way to do it.
Heartstone Farm just launched its equity crowdfunding campaign on Start Engine. This campaign offers customers and investors the opportunity to own a piece of the farm. 115 customers have already come on board, investing in over $170,000.
It's motivating, I'll tell you this much. When your customers are actually your owners, you're like, I better go to work today.
Alyssa Thurlow, WABI TV5 News, Dover Foxcroft.
You don't have to be a customer to own a piece of the farm. If you would like to become an investor, you can learn more by heading to heartstonefarm.com.
Have you?
I don't think we need to see it again. Let me just see how I do that one. See, if I do that. There we go. So the bottom line is we want to ask you tonight to join us as a co-owner of Heartstone Farm. It's an important thing to do. It means a lot. It's changing how people get their meat, and it's an investment. It's it's not a charity. Our intention is to build a business, and in building a business, to build value for the shareholders, you. And so that's why we're doing this. Let's see. I think. Oh, and here's a bunch of legal gobbledygook that you don't really need to pay much attention to. So with that, I think I'm going to start answering questions. Was there anything big that I left out, Denise, that I should have mentioned? Did I mention about the steak and the salt? Oh,
Yeah. Oh.
it's not, I haven't given it away, but I did give you a clue. Denise later on at the very end at 6:55 or so, 7:55, we'll be sharing her. Yeah, because that's not, even though I just like blurted something out, that was not all there is to the recipe. It's way more than that. So, so we have some questions. Some have come in
Yes.
tonight, some came in, and we really want to get through them. And it's not even 7:30, so we got plenty of time. We'll go about an hour. Again, submit your question in that QA thing if we don't happen to answer them. And then I would just say, if we don't answer a question that's really important to you, please feel free to email us with it. But I will remind you here that the early bird perks, which include bonus shares, for instance, those expire at noon tomorrow. So I don't want to twist your arm, but I also want to say, it's an opportunity you want to make sure you take advantage of. So Denise, do we have a question?
We do. We have many. Okay, so the first one, I think you've answered. So, but it says, why are you doing this?
Yeah, and it's and I hope I got to the answer of that, but I think it comes down to turning to our best supporters, our customers, people who really believe in what we're doing, and saying, hey, we want to serve more people, serve more farms. We want to build a business, and we want you to benefit as well. It's not a charity. It's about investing in a business and getting a return for that. How about another one?
What are the advantages to the consumer for funding the farm?
So there are some things in the perks that are triggered by different kind of levels of investment, having to do with discounts on orders. At certain levels, you get a free turkey or free prime rib this fall, and there are some other perks. Again, they kind of go up with that. But I think the main thing that I really need to say is it's about the two things that are in it for you are, number one, if you believe that what we're doing is important and good and trying to change the meat supply chain. If you believe that, inhumane conditions and antibiotics and hormones, just not the kind of meat that should be Americans should be eating. That's number one. Number two is a return on your investment. And while I can't tell you, because I don't have a crystal ball, exactly what that will be, I can tell you that our sales have doubled this year over last year. And that we believe the reason to grow is that there's consumer demand out there for a better product. So those are really the two reasons for you as a consumer to join us.
Once invested, is there any return on investment?
Yeah, so you are buying ownership in Heartstone Farm. You're buying shares of ownership, and you'll see that on the Start Engine page. The way that you'll get a return on your investment is when the time comes, and I guess I should say also if, that stock has gone up in value. There's a couple of outcomes that I should mention. One is Heartstone Farm does really well. Our sales are growing, and we believe that actually another company might be able to help us grow even more. And so the company might be sold. I was giving Denise an example earlier about how Ben and Jerry's ice cream, when they first started, and they were doing really well, but in order to grow to their full potential, they got acquired. And so when they got acquired, or if Heartstone Farm got acquired, the stock that you're buying would be have appreciated in value, and you'd get the benefit of that. There might come a time when the company was doing well and it issued dividends to its stockholders. Or as with any stock, if you bought Amazon today or 10 years ago and you said, I want to, get the money out of that, you would sell the Amazon stock. Now, Amazon's a publicly traded company and Heartstone Farm is not, but you have the right, and particularly after the first year, there's a little bit of a holding period and limitations. But after the first year, you have the right to sell your stock. You could sell it to somebody you know, and you could also sell it in a marketplace that is actually on Start Engine, and you can even see it today, where people are buying and selling stock that they have bought on Start Engine. So those are a few of the ways and the outcomes that might happen. There's one thing I have to say, which is because this is our campaign, and Start Engine are all have to live up to regulations of the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm told by lawyers that I need to be careful about promises. I can't say, for instance, this is going to be worth 10 times what you invest. That's not legal to say. I can tell you what we're doing, what we believe in, how we're doing it. I can tell you about my experience as an entrepreneur, having built and sold businesses. I've done that a bunch, but I obviously can't make a promise because I don't have a crystal ball, and the lawyers say don't make a promise. So I'll just make that little asterisk here.
What will the funds be used for exactly?
Yeah. So in the Start Engine page, it does list kind of the categories that we're going to use the funds for. In order to grow, what we need to do is build our inventory, and we've been doing that over the last year. And by that I mean, and Denise is probably, she's like on top of this. Last month we got 27 or 2,800 orders. A year ago we had 900. In order to make sure, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to remind you of that. But in order to kind of make sure that we can fulfill those orders, customers say, I want ribeyes, I want pork chops. We need to have that inventory. To have that inventory, because we're in the protein business, in the case of cows, it means we have those cows for a long time as they're growing, or as they're at the processor, and then they're in our freezer. And chicken, paying the farmer to raise the chicken, then we're, taking the chicken to the processor. So in order to kind of grow the business, you've got to grow inventory. So that's a really big one. We've also, in order to kind of find new customers, we've been investing in marketing. We've been doing a fair amount of advertising, which has been really paying off because I think people are looking for this kind of thing. So we've been advertising on Meta, which is Facebook. We've been advertising on Instagram, which is also part of Meta, and Google probably gets the majority. What we found is that, when people are looking, grass-fed beef or meat that's better for you or whatever, it's important for us to show up there on that page. And that has really paid off because I think we're really connecting. This is what people are looking for. We're also need, in order to grow, we're going to need to build our staff out. We're all working really long hours, and there's kind of some areas, we're doing a $5 to $6 million business with 10 people. That's, it's going to be hard to do a $10 million business with 10 people. So there's people we're going to need to hire. And yeah, I'd say those are the main things that we'll be investing in and why we're raising this money.
I want to learn about the campaign from Dan. Perhaps, excuse me, what is the smallest amount required to invest?
The smallest amount you can invest is $300, and we purposefully set it at a relatively low amount so that we could get more customers. That not all of our customers are well off, and in fact they go across the economic spectrum. I think one of the things that I've always found interesting, and people, our prices are not cheap. I get it. But it's not about whether our customers are well off. We serve people who believe that it's important to know and trust and buy clean, meat that's been raised right. So yeah, that's why we set it low, $300. I think our largest investment so far, I think, was $20,000. So don't want to keep out anybody who's 20,000 or even more than that. But we also want to make it very, accessible, maybe is the right word.
I think you've covered this, but what do the shares provide, and can you cash them out later on?
Yeah. So the point of investing is like I said, yeah, you believe in our mission and stuff. That makes you feel good, and it's important to support a business that you're a co-owner of. But the bottom line is it's about cashing out. And so there are going to be, a variety, like I said, there's going to be a variety of possible outcomes, and I don't know which one it's going to be. I've done a lot of entrepreneurial businesses before I discovered 10 years ago that what I always wanted to do was be a farmer. But so I know about exiting and selling businesses. And I know that there are businesses that if we build something that's worthwhile and sustainable, that there are going to be other businesses that are going to say, that's an area we really want to get into, and maybe we should buy Heartstone Farm or partner with them or invest in them. That's the way that shareholders, whether it's me or you, are going to get cashed out, as I think the person said. Is that what they said? Cashed out?
Cash them in later on, but yeah, same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of becoming a member? Also, how to know for sure that animals are not mistreated.
The benefits of being a member or really a stockholder are what I've mentioned, which is that you're putting, your money where your beliefs are. That's kind of one piece of it. But you're also kind of it's not a charity, and you're expecting a financial return for that. If you believe that what we're doing is important and that others will see it, that will grow our customers as we have been in the last year, doubling our sales. If you believe that, we're putting the right pieces in place, then you'll benefit from the financial reward of that. But the other thing you asked was just so critically important. And when we know how we treat our animals here at Heartstone Farm, and it's what we expect of every other farm, and it's what we insist on of every other farm. Our cattle are moved every single day. When it's a hot day, they've got shade, they've always got water. We actually feed them hay out in the fields because they may want hay. We feed them minerals, free choice minerals out there. We move them every day because that's the natural thing that herds of, whether they're cattle or bison, do, is they're kind of moving across the prairie. We keep them safe. We treat them well. And when we do things like we weigh them, and we have to sort them, we do it with respect and love and never a cattle prod in sight. We try to understand, their movements and work with them, instead of yelling at them or anything like that. So that's so important to us that's what we do at our farm, and we work and insist on other farms doing the same, and we're on the sites of those other farms. There's something in my wall.
There is.
It's a farm. There's something in my wall.
There's something chewing on your wall.
Yeah.
Can I say something to that?
Yes, please do.
So.
I'm gonna turn this. There's
Hi, y'all.
Denise, everybody.
So with that, for instance, that just covers beef. And let's talk about the other farms. For instance, the chicken, all the producers that we work with are small Amish farms. Every single one of those farms signs an affidavit, and those farms are checked. If it's not me or Dan or Sean or someone traveling to see them next week, I think I have to go to Massachusetts for a few days. So those things are checked, and they're really important. The conditions, what they eat, how they're treated, when they're in the barn, when they're on pasture, when every bit of their life is so important. Before they get processed, stress always changes the taste of the meat and every condition. And then even when they're processed, when when a cow is dispatched or anything like that, that whole process is managed with great detail. So we definitely take great pride in how the animals are treated, and all the farms sign affidavits.
Next question, Denise.
It's just something that
No, I really appreciate that perspective and your point about how we verify it.
About that.
And yeah, I mean, and it's kind of the picture, if you remember, that I showed you earlier of those pigs. In particular, in the case of pigs, that's how pork is raised in the United States these days. Pigs often don't see daylight.
Yeah, they're on slat floors
during their lives. And it's efficient for the meat producer, for the meat processor. It's cheap. It's why you can buy a pork chop for, I don't know, 69 cents or whatever you can. But it's not right, and it doesn't produce good meat. It produces actually meat that has no flavor. So
very pale pork is what you'll see in the stores because of it. When is the last day to invest?
So I'm pushing hard for your benefit on this deadline of tomorrow at noon, but that's not the end of our campaign. Our actually campaign is going to go for 3 months. That's the time frame that Start Engine and the SEC set up. So this is going to be going until November 21st, I think. But getting it off to this kind of really good start is really important. One of the reasons it's important is that on Start Engine, there actually are other investors that look at our business or look at businesses that are on there. And if they see a momentum has a business has momentum, it will look attractive. So we're hoping that we're kind of making a statement by how much we can raise and how many owners we can get, and that will be something of a statement to other people who might want to invest.
What equity will I get as a shareholder, and will there be distributions, or a future recap?
What's the last word?
Recap.
Recap. I think I've answered most of
Yeah.
that. You're receiving common stock shares in Heartstone Farm. As such, you're an owner of Heartstone Farm just as much as anybody else. We don't happen to have different classes of stock. It's just all common stock. We're a C corporation. I think some people have asked me, and maybe I'll volunteer it here, about tax implications of that. Because we're a C corporation, there's no kind of like profits that get taxed that you have to pay. And you're also have a shield of liability, right? It's like owning shares of Amazon. Somebody sues Amazon and you own some shares, you're not getting sued. So it's very similar to that.
Okay, I'm gonna skip the rest of the ones that were
Yeah,
sent
sure.
in, because we've covered them, and let's get to these great questions that have been sent.
Okay. And we have maybe 15, we only have like 12 minutes because then we have to get this recipe in.
Okay. If selling the farm is a potential exit strategy, how do you know the new owners will honor your values?
It's a great
That was a good
question,
question.
and it is getting a little bit ahead of itself in a way, if I can say that. But I think, I think that it's a little bit, I think I can say this, it's a little bit like getting married, right? You want to know, and again, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. I'm doing Heartstone Farm. Denise and I are doing, all of us are doing Heartstone Farm. We're not selling the business, but I've been through sales, and I know that part of the courtship, maybe I'll even call it, is getting to know the other party and finding out what their values are and making, I didn't build this, we didn't do this in order to kind of sell out and have somebody, start selling, pork chops from Nebraska. That's not why we're doing it. And so, if there's a legacy of the business and of our hard work, we're going to watch out for that. No money's worth, just kind of saying, oh, sure, whatever, Tyson. Well, here's the answer. We're not selling to Tyson. So,
Absolutely not. Okay. We answered, is there dividends? And then after the first year, can you sell your share and how do you do that? And I think that's been answered.
yeah, you can sell it. I would advise, I know there's a lot of stuff on Start Engine, lots of pages of stuff. Don't have to read it all. Some of these answers, there are answers to who you can sell it to and what the restrictions are in the first year. They're not that terrible restrictions, but I think I'm trying to remember what they are. But there's some restrictions in the first year. But I'm going to tell you, if you're thinking of selling this in the first year, probably it's not. Yeah, I mean, this is not it's not an investment that you're going to flip in 6 months. It's also not one that we understand. So I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, I don't really want to make this investment for 10 years. I get that. Most people don't have like that kind of horizon. So we're aware of that and probably we're thinking the same way.
Will the opportunity to invest be ongoing or does it end at some point?
Yeah.
She
So
said-
mentioning again, the deadline for the early bird perks, that's tomorrow at noon, but the whole fundraising ability to buy stock ends on November 21st. And there may be other opportunities. Some other companies have, gone back to Start Engine and done some more fundraising. We're not anticipating that.
Is your business plan and will it look to start retail locations selling your products?
So it's an interesting question. In this day and yeah, we've thought about it. We actually had a store in Dover
Yep.
pre-pandemic. That was just open on Saturday. Was it Saturdays? Saturday mornings or something? You
Yeah,
weren't there.
during the
or-
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah. In this day and age, it's interesting that, of course, brick and mortar, as they're called, retail stores, are struggling partly because of e-commerce, right? I was thinking about this today. If we're going to do $5.5, $6 million worth of business, we're taking that from somebody, a grocery store, more, which, and they're not suffering yet, but I think there are times when offering your product in a retail location might make sense. And so, yeah, we've thought about that. We've thought about, it's not our primary business, I don't think, but it might be a good way to extend our brand to get more people to know about us. Got another one?
Oh, I have lots. Live in PA and love Heartstone meats, but we go to Florida for 5 months in the winter. We'll probably have to stop for 5 months.
No.
No way, Jose.
Um, like we mentioned, we intend to expand that map, which is currently, the 15 states in the Northeast. And if we could, probably our first iteration or first kind of step out of that map is kind of, one or two states there. But for sure, I'd say we look at Georgia, Florida, Texas. Going back a few years, for a few months, 3 months, 4 months, we did some shipping with FedEx, and they were helping us to achieve this. And we actually I always got a kick out of this. We got customers in Texas who loved our product. And I thought, that is really cool. We're selling our beef from the Northeast, from Maine to Texas, people who think it's really good. So yeah, I would definitely want to expand, whether that's the whole country right away or just being able to kind of serve the East Coast. That feels a little more natural to me, but we're currently serving, I think I figured this, maybe it's 25% of the US population. So I think a way we can grow our business is to expand that footprint.
You mentioned last year regarding doubling your returns. What about since inception to 10 years? Question mark.
So I'd say the business has gone through a few phases. Maybe that's the right word. You saw those first 5 cows. That was more of a get your feet wet phase and learn grass-fed beef and that kind of thing. And the business grew by I'm trying to remember. By 2019 or so, we were doing like $250,000 or $300,000 worth of business. And then came 2020, and it was like, a tidal wave. I remember our sales in like January, February 2020 were like $25,000, $30,000. And by May, they were $200,000. And that was a function of people not being able to find meat, being scared of the meat that they could find, the pandemic, the craziness there. And then I was kind of doing it by myself a little bit. And then Denise came on board in May 2020. And our goal back then was, hey, we're getting all these new customers. Let's find a way to keep them, right? Give them such great product, great service. We'll keep them. Our business since the pandemic kind of like, took a, leap. And then we had a couple of years of pretty steady. And then I think, last year we kind of said, we took 2023 and we said, let's start to grow, but let's use this year to kind of really lay the groundwork for that growth. And we brought on some team members. We did some renovations at the building where we do fulfillment. We started working with more farmers. And then we said, basically last September, almost a year ago, we turned the kind of marketing thing on, and it took off. So month over month since about then, we've been double. In August, we were up 130%. So, but we had to kind of like get ready, and that's what we did. And now we're kind of getting ready for the next phase by asking you to invest. Maybe like one more or something.
People are asking if they can come and visit and do a tour.
So we are a working farm, and so it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of accommodate visitors just all the time. We set up every year, we've been doing for maybe the last 5 years, an open farm day. And this is important, we actually have decided to do a owner's summer barbecue. So you'll be invited to that as an owner. I'm going to turn this over to Denise in just 1 second for this very much anticipated steak recipe. I'm going to be taking notes. But I do want to ask you to join us if you believe in what we're doing and want to make a profit at it. And I'm being careful not to promise it, but that's our intention, is to build this business doing something important and something good. We could use your help, and we'd love to have you join us on this journey. So with that, Denise just shows up like that. That's cool.
Magical.
Tell us about how to cook a great steak.
So I am an avid cook and I cook all the time. And the best way that I have found to cook a steak for me to get it tender and have that nice crisp crust on the outside and have the most tender meat on the inside is to take it out, let it thaw in the fridge, or you can even do it in warm water, but getting it to room temperature. But the key is right when you take it out of the refrigerator and the package, you're going to heavily salt each side of the steak, lay it on a plate, put a little cover on it or whatever, slide it off to the side and forget about it to 40 minutes to an hour to get it to room temperature. What that's going to do is it's going to draw out the moisture on the each side of the meat just enough so that you get a lovely crust. And you'll have the most tender piece of meat. And I've done that with a ribeye, a porterhouse. I've even done it with some marinating steaks, which always need a little bit more love. Because there are a more strenuously, used muscle. So they're tougher. So you definitely want to try and get that more tender with a marinade or whatever, but salting the steak. And now some people will rinse it off. I do not. I am doing a carnivore diet, so I definitely do not rinse that off because I use Redmond salt. It's a pure salt. It's very good for you, so I do not take any of that off. So
Does that have bigger, is it like a kosher salt or
you can actually get it in different grinds,
Yep.
and I ordered mine fine. So
I was talking to Denise earlier. I certainly salt my steak pretty heavily before I cook it, but just listening to that and thinking about, oh, that's like taking it up a notch. So hopefully you learned a lot about our business, and now you're hungry for a ribeye. And so again, we will answer by email any other questions you have. I was just glancing, there are some. And we'll do our best to answer them. Thanks for your support. It means so much to us, and we're dedicated to giving you a good return on your investment. So thanks for joining us.
thank you. Have a lovely evening.
Yeah, good night.